it's a little machine that makes a little humming sound.
Yes.
And everybody know what that is. If you got China, it's gonna fall and break. Just like the train going down the river. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Men the same thing. Men the same thing. That hand. That hand. Yep, that one hand. Like I said, you wash your hand? You wash your hand? Don't give me a high five. I don't know. See? You see the point? That's the joke. Yeah, you see the point.
It's true.
Association and company. Our job is to help someone, not to sit there and allow that mess to rub off on us, getting in the way that us. We got someone who's struggling with that. Brother, just struggling with that thing. His hand can't help it. What is that, glue on the wall? Oh no, I'm sorry. But when they're young, they learn how to take baths 3 hours. 3-hour baths. Will you ever get in the bath? I'm coming. 3-hour bath only take about 20-30 minutes. A 3-hour bath, and the whole bathroom quiet. Come on. Yeah? Not gonna do See, it has a lot to do with association and company. I'm not saying we walk around with this spirit of attitude of being judgmental and trying to push people away, but be careful. When God's purging you and He's shifting and transforming your life from people, it's a reason why. You're not sneak a certain little comment in. And it keep messing with your face. Before you know, you start talking more and relate more on certain subjects that you should have been away from. You should have been away from that subject. But now you're talking on things that's become common because it's not comfortable to your flesh. And see, this is the thing. God said you want to be elevated, but you can't even be trusted to let go of certain people because you want to still have friends. And you don't want to be alone. And if I'm going to transition you, and if I'm going to transform you, you got to understand how to let yourself be alone for a season based on not having much people to relate to because I'm doing something with you. And stop to feel like you got to constantly be on the phone, constantly in somebody's face, constantly with somebody. Because I'm going to transition you and I'm going to transform you. A part of the association and company will bring a place of isolation and loneliness when that season God is to birth and do things in your spirit. Oh yeah. So stop fighting for friends and associations and compromise with family and friends. Look at that mess and hearing all kind of nonsense. Stop it, God's people. Stop it. So, then he asked that question. Are you ready to receive it? Or are you rejecting it? Are you rejecting it? Or are you receiving it? This place of association and company and transformation and transition. And see, now the next one we have is this. Integrity and character. Integrity and character. Well, let me tell you something. See, it's like this. You just can't be, and no one's perfect, no one has everything together, no one has everything all in place. You understand God wants all of us as His people, He's going to continue to mold and shape. Okay, but now, at the same time, There has to be a place where we have to have some integrity about what we do and how we do things. And we have to have some character. You understand? So some person said they come in, they don't come. Person said they'll be there, they don't be there. Don't let me call you and tell you nothing. Person say, I'm come by pick you up, come and pick you up. Just leave. Don't even come by. Don't say nothing. Watch this. Character. You can be trusted, be trusted. Integrity. Honesty. Who we are privately. Watch this. And so God, a lot of times, He's saying with a lot of these people, your integrity and your character is not in place, so I can't really elevate you. Let me tell you why. Remember this. You always hear me say this. A lot of times, if the character is not in place, if God wants to elevate some people and put them before some people with their character the way it is at that time, they actually will blow certain levels of blessings. Because certain people, when they come in contact with certain people, those people have character. So when God puts you before those people, if your character is not in place, you'll blow it. Because those people, the individuals, men and women of God, believe and operate in character and integrity. So if your integrity and character is not in place, whenever your character and your integrity is not in place begin to show, they begin to drop you. And it won't have to be a God thing, it has to be a standard God allowed you to operate. See, remember something, you can have integrity and character, God will speak to you and say, you must only drop or leave the person alone if I tell you to. No, God give us a standard that we can actually go by according to the structure of Him and His Word, and He'll honor it. See the point? So sometimes we can say, I'm done. Unless God said otherwise, we understand that. But we can say, I'm done with that. Because when I'm integrity and I'll stand according to the Word. See the point? Listen, according to the Word. Not just trying to shun someone saying something wrong. Not that. I'm talking about according to the Word that we can say, I'm done. And God has to shift back to no. Whatever, in God be God. But at the same time, He allowed us to have a standard according to this and say, no, listen, you've granted me the permission to set the order and the tone pertaining to what you have allowed me to be over. And for that reason, you've allowed me to be granted the wisdom to do this. And so for that reason, I want to deal with integrity and character and who I deal with and relate to. So when I don't see that or relate to that, and I'm constantly giving chances and mercy and grace pertaining to that, if I say, I'm done, you grant it unless you decide to say otherwise. This is why God has to transform some people to get their integrity in place, to get their character in place. Because when God begins to send them before certain people, if their character is not in place and their integrity is not in place, then what's going to begin to happen is they're going to end up blowing a lot of doors that was open for them, and it's going to end up shutting right in their face. So I thought the door was open. I thought the door was open. No, the door was open. The door was open, but the person shut. Do you know that we have the power to shut doors that God Himself did open? You say, well, I thought the favor of God is on me. It's on me. It's on you. It's on us. But a lot of times when He sends us through one, we don't know how to maintain in that door. And because we don't know how to maintain in that door, the door ends up shutting. Because the integrity and the character was not in place. Was not in place. And so God began to say, no. The reason why is because you shut the door. You shut the door. So now, for that reason, what has to happen is God has to begin to say, you know what? Let me transform and transition. And then, okay, when I send you to places, I can trust to send you there because I know you're trustworthy to handle it. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The next one is this one here is heavy in the kingdom, and God desires to really get this one with His people. And that is procrastination and slothfulness. See, let me tell you something. Elevation cannot happen a lot of times until a lot of God's people understand that they need to get rid of procrastination and slothfulness. And so how does that have to do with, what does that have to do with transformation and transition? See, let me tell you something. Before you can be elevated, God said a lot of times you have to get your life and your spirit to a place of being not slothful and procrastinating. Watch this. Now, first I said, no, you're telling me if I'm slothful and procrastinating that I can't be elevated, maybe in a position or title, this or that? No, I'm not saying that. Because some of the most slack people get elevated in spite of, because God want to do that for his reason. Watch this. And then he continue to work on it. Watch this. I'm not just talking about it. Elevation I'm talking about is just in the spirit and not just position. So what does that mean? If he want to elevate you to a greater place of worship and praise, how every time he keep telling you to go into a worship, you don't. And you keep looking, flipping the remote. He's trying to take you to a higher place of worship. He keeps telling you to go to a higher place of worship. He's trying to take you there, but you keep flipping the remote. Looking at Lifetime, and WWE, and UFC. Watch this now. He tell you to go in prayer at 4:30, 5 or 6. Every time he tell you that, instead of you being up in prayer at 5 o'clock, you sleeping. So that ability to get up and do what you need to do was going to birth you to another realm of intercession and prayer, because he can trust to take you there. Because every time he tells you to get up and do it, you do it, and he trusts you in that and begin to anoint you and put more people on your heart and begin to give you more to pray about. How you give you a lot to pray about when you ain't not praying? Every time you pray, you sleep. Just get up and pray. I want to pray for you in a minute. Leave from getting up from prayer, not praying, getting up from not praying, getting up from sleeping, I meant to say. Getting up from sleeping, rushing out the door to go do this and that. No, God told you to pray at 5. So if you have to be there somewhere at 8:30, 9 o'clock, you can have enough time. You get up at 5, he tells you to pray for 2 hours, you still ain't got your day started yet. See? So it got to be somewhere at 8, you try to rush, get down at 7 and have your prayer. You're rushing, looking at the clock, at the watch. What's the whole point behind this? See, he's saying, I'm trying to get you to be disciplined in your spirit. If I teach you to be disciplined in your spirit, then what would happen from there? What would happen from there would be this. Your spirit would begin to get disciplined to a point where I can begin to trust you more, to impart more into your spirit, to give you to pray for. The next one of procrastination is this. You said with transformation, well, trust factor with man. See, watch this. That was the realm of the spirit. Now the other factor is man, and those God has positioned us to be around. Sometimes if you're too procrastinating and too slothful, a lot of times people feel that they can't trust you because you're not dependable. And when you're not dependable, that means they'll work with you, but they're not going to trust you and depend on you because you're not trustworthy. You see the point? So if you're not dependable, that means you're not trustworthy. If you're not trustworthy, you're not dependable. See? Because that means every time you say, I need you to be in place at 10 o'clock. What happened was, I was coming, and what happened was, no, you can't keep doing that. See the point? Things happen, but out of every 10 times, 8 is always an excuse. That means you have a procrastinating and slothful spirit. And it means God's trying to transform you out of that to get you into a spiritual place of discipline. See, remember something. You can get your spirit to be disciplined, but it takes work to get it. You can't gain a disciplined spirit. Let me give you a prime example. You see the guys who go, and females who go to the military. They could have been slack at home, growing up all those years, and then 17, 18, and then leaving home. And a lot of times, once they go into the military, been all those years, they actually gain a disciplined attitude. And they actually, when they eventually get married and have children, they actually have a disciplined life. You can change. It don't matter if you're 20 and 25 and 30. It don't matter. You can actually get disciplined. Anybody. So right now, if that's the case, when God said, I'm trying to transform you out of that and transition you out of that, what he's saying is this: I don't want you at a place where I can't trust you because you're so slothful and such a procrastinator. I'm trying to get you to a place of discipline and order in your life and in your spirit. When I said pray, you would. When I said worship, you worship. You turn up the TV, you turn up the music, you turn this off, you turn it up. Because you're willing to get disciplined and have order in your spirit and in your life so that you can be elevated. See the point? Now, but you got to remember something. You have to decide when he's presented to you, are you going to do it or not? Are you going to stay asleep or get up and pray? When he said be on time, are you going to be on time or are you going to always have excuses? See, a lot of times as saints, we're so used to having excuses, we're comfortable with that. You know what I'm saying? See, when you become disciplined, you don't want to have excuses. You want to get rid of the excuse. You just want to be in place, on time, on target, when you need to be according to God and wherever you need to go or be. Because you want to become that yourself for you. It's second to man or to structures, to authority. It's second to them. It's first to you. And when you want to become that, you want to become that for yourself. See the point? For yourself. I want to be disciplined for me. And I ain't got to do the husband, the wife, the pastor, the bishop, the prophet. Got nothing to do nobody else. They come second for me. I want me to just be a disciplined person. I want to be a disciplined person for me. Okay? So, when we look at all of this, we must ask ourselves the question, am I ready to really be elevated? Am I really ready to be elevated? We must ask ourselves the question, are we really receiving the transformation and the transition that God has for us? And what He's trying to do in our life? Are we really ready and receiving? Are we rejecting? Are we rejecting what God's trying to do pertaining to transforming us? See? And transitioning us. See, the days need to be over where we're talking about elevation and shifting, if you don't understand what elevation and shifting means. Shifting involves change, and change involves transformation, and transformation involves transition, and transition involves alteration, and alteration involves what? Modification. To modify means to change, to alter. And we're not altering our spirit. Like I said earlier, if we're not altering our spirit, we're not truly being elevated. If we're not transitioning our spirit, we're not truly being elevated. What we're doing is we're Christians who have sustained and maintained our spirit at a level. And we're deceived in our own mind and thinking that we're actually being elevated in our spirit. I'm not talking about prophecy. I'm not talking about seeing in the spirit. I'm not talking about just praying. I'm not talking about speaking in tongues. I'm not talking about none of that. All that's going to happen because we're anointed and in God. I'm talking about when we actually allow ourselves to be transformed and changed, as the Bible said here. As He said, we all, with open face, beholding as in a glass with the glory of the Lord, are changed into the same image, from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord. Allow that change to take place. This is not no salvation that's new. Telling someone, oh, change it, get to know Jesus. It's not what this is. This is about maturity and about elevation and the anointing and about the things of God. This is about people who are already in God. This message is for those who are already in God. It's now time to receive true elevation the right way. And it's time to go from glory to glory the right way. And it's time for us to understand how to receive it, which is transition, alteration, modification, and the key word which involves that change is transformation. So you must ask yourself the question, and you must answer it for yourself, which makes it rhetorical to you. Transition and transformation for elevation. Are you ready and receiving, or are you rejecting? That question each of us must answer for ourselves. Amen? Amen. Let us stand.